Shalom and welcome to Simchat Yisrael. In this week's Parashat, we read the famous story of Noah. Noah is probably the first real hero of the Bible. In a world full of wickedness and sin, Noah alone was righteous. This is high praise coming from God. Nowhere else in the entire Hebrew scriptures is any other person described as a tzaddik, a righteous man. Noah walked continually with God, and God chose him for this very important task of restarting the world. But while Noah may be the first hero of the Bible, the rabbis of the Talmud have a lot of criticism for him. They acknowledge that he's a tzaddik, but they call him a Tzaddik Im Peltz, a righteous man in a fur coat. What does that mean? Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel down below. Scripture tells us that Noah found grace and favor in God's eyes because he was a righteous man. But the Bible doesn't stop there. It goes on to say that Noah was blameless among the people of his time. Some rabbis of the Talmud argue that Noah was only righteous in his generation because everyone else in the world was completely corrupt. They say that if he had lived in the time of a great man like Abraham, he wouldn't have been anything special. Rashi himself says, Noah required God's support to uphold him in righteousness, but Abraham strengthened himself and walked in his righteousness by himself. Noah was a good man, but he wasn't a superhero like Abraham. Why then did God choose him? Did God just throw up his hands and say, well, beggars can't be choosers, I'll just go with the least rotten apple? God didn't choose Noah because he was a spiritual superstar, or because he knew how to build a boat, or because animals liked him. God chose Noah because Noah possessed a quality that is rare and hard to find even today. Noah knew how to listen to the voice of God. Anyone can hear God. Noah knew how to listen. In the whole biblical account of the flood, how many words does Noah say? The answer is none. In contrast, look at the first meeting between God and Moses. In their first conversation, Moses tries to shirk his responsibility 5 times before God finally gets angry at him, but not Noah. Noah doesn't say a word. He just does exactly what God asked him to do. Noah is a lesson in faith and obedience that goes beyond all conventional reason. Nothing about what God told Noah made any sense. It had never even rained before. Noah didn't even know what a flood was. God never told Noah how he was supposed to get all those animals. It must have been a great relief to him when he didn't have to go out with a net and a tranquilizer gun and get them all himself. It took Noah 120 years to build that ark. How many of us would have the commitment to stay that course for literally centuries? I know people have to switch jobs every 18 months, and yet Noah spends 120 years building his ark and getting himself ready because he trusts God, and he knows how to listen. And because he does, the world gets saved. But that's not where the story ends. It would have been nice if the story wrapped up after the rainbow. But after that, Noah plants a vineyard, grows some grapes that he uses to make wine, gets drunk, and winds up falling asleep naked. His son Ham mocks him and calls his brothers to come and laugh at their father. But they have some decency and cover Noah with a blanket. It's an unexpected way to end the story. Noah ends this tale not as the righteous and triumphant hero who saved the world through his obedience, but drunk and naked, with one son mocking him and the other two too ashamed to even look at him. Why this humiliating downfall? Noah did what he was supposed to do, right? Why is he so sad and depressed that he's drowning his sorrows? Maybe it's because Noah didn't do everything he was supposed to do. Maybe Noah realized that he could have done much more. This is why the sages call Noah a Tzaddik Im Peltz, a righteous man in a fur coat. The rabbis explain that when it's winter and it's freezing cold, there are 2 things you can do. You can build a fire, or you can wrap yourself in a fur coat. In both cases, you are warm. But when you build a fire, all who gather around will also be warm. With the fur coat, the only one who's warm is you. Noah knew how to listen to God, but maybe Noah's greatest strength was also his weakness. Throughout the whole story, Noah is silent. He does what he's told, but God doesn't want silent, mindless, obedient slaves. When God speaks to Adam, Adam speaks back. When God speaks to Cain, Cain speaks back. When God speaks to Noah, Noah says nothing. What if Noah had said something? What if he had gone out to his neighbors and engaged with them? What if he had shown them how to change their ways and start a new life that would be pleasing to God? What if he prayed for them and questioned the justice of the flood as Abraham would do for the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah? Maybe, just maybe, God would have changed his mind. But instead, Noah says nothing. He busies himself with the work. It takes Noah 120 years to build the ark, and when he and his family get on, they get on by themselves. In 120 years, Noah didn't influence a single person around him. Noah's strength was that in a wicked world, he could be unaffected by it. But he did that by isolating himself and hiding his light under a basket. When God told him that winter was coming, Noah didn't build a fire. He put on a fur coat. Noah's story is both triumphant and cautionary. Noah obeyed God, but his ark became a wall that he could hide behind. Noah's story and his sad ending warns us that we cannot build arks only for ourselves. When God delivered a sentence of judgment to Noah, Noah was silent. But when God declared that he would destroy the cities of the plain to Abraham, Abraham begged for God to spare them. But the story of compassion doesn't end there. Just as Abraham did a greater thing than Noah, Moses does a greater thing than Abraham. When God declares that he will destroy Israel after the sin of the golden calf, Moses says to God, "If you kill them, then kill me as well." But the story doesn't end there either, because Yeshua does something even greater than Moses. When all of creation stood in judgment, just as it was in the days of Noah, when sin had turned all hearts to evil all the time, Yeshua stood in between us and judgment and said, "Don't kill them. Take me in their place." We can't be content to simply be righteous in our generation. Yeshua did not give us the option of saving only ourselves while the rest of the world drowns. In Mark chapter 16, he tells his disciples, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." Yeshua doesn't tell us, "Save yourselves and go hide in a cave until the day of judgment." He's giving us a message that is the very opposite of Noah. I'm not here to destroy all of creation. I'm here to rescue it, and I need your help to do it. We can't be content to just be better than average. We can't be content to save ourselves while the rest of the world drowns. We are called to follow a higher example than that. Today, we have to step out of our arks, take off our fur coats, and start building fires. Shalom and thanks for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe. And don't forget to visit simchatyisrael.org to learn more.